Tina. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Marjot. How are you? It's a pleasure to be here.
Same here, Tina. I was talking to Tina about H-1B changes yesterday, and we've been getting a lot of calls. I hope this is not a call. um, People are asking other questions about U.S. immigration possibilities for them, especially for Canadians who live in Canada with a Canadian passport. So I thought, why not grill Tina one more time with one of the most frequently asked questions by Canadians who own a business, that if they have a set of, let's say, investment funds and we have some experience, can we go to America to do this? And I know some people are watching this show on YouTube. This is on YouTube Live. Samir Khan, hello. Hi, hello, Samir Khan. Guys, if you watch the show, we are talking only about U.S. Treaty investor visa. Now we are not talking about Canada. We are not talking about H-1B. So let us just restrict our discussion only. If you want to ask any questions to Tina, you can type your questions, and I will read it if you have time, and then maybe Tina can answer. But I see some people are saying hello, and Samir Khan, hold on your thoughts to for now. Just we are just talking about U.S. treaty investor visa. So, Tina, what is treaty investor visa in U.S. and how does it work? Can you just give a little brief introductory summary?
Sure. So the E-2 visa is a treaty visa which is available for certain countries who share a treaty with the US, and citizens of those countries can come to the US. It is a non-immigrant visa, so it's a temporary visa that can be renewed every 2 years for those who want to start up a business in the US and invest in the United States. The country list that is available, you can get that on the Department of State website. It gives a list of the countries that are approved for E-2 treaty investment.
Okay, so I guess I must start with, so Canada is one of the signatory countries. Canadians are eligible for applying for US E2 visa, correct?
That's correct, yes. Canada does share
That's correct.
the E-2 has a treaty with the US,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so let's paint a little scenario here. If I am a small business in Canada, if I am an entrepreneur in Canada, and if I have, let's say I'm running a gas station, a couple of gas stations here, and I have close to about, let's say, between 200,000 and 300,000 US dollars, how do you start this off? If I approach you, what do you do? How do you help me? Show me the steps.
Sure. Well, the first step is, firstly, you have to set up the business component in the US. So many people, especially from Canada, well, they actually don't need a visitor visa to come in from Canada. So they can come in from Canada and they can set up the LLC, the corporation. They can also set up the bank account, which is really important because when they do transfer the funds, it's important that the funds go into the business account. So the first step is also to find a business here in the US, and minimum, I mean, there is no requirement by law, but most embassies have interpreted that the minimum amount of investment should be $100,000. Now, it does depend on what business you're starting up and also which state you're opening that business in. I did have an E-2 approved for someone in Nevada for $70,000. So obviously it's a state that requires less investment.
Does the business has to be particularly relevant in a certain industry, or people can choose any? For example, if I have experience running a retail business like a service station, a gas station, do I have to buy a similar business, or I can buy something which have nothing to do with my background?
It's really important, and I say this to people all the time, to open up a business that you have experience in. The embassy do look for that. That is part of the E-2 application, is to show that you're either own a business in a similar industry, or you've got a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in that industry that you're going to open a business in. And the reason for that is to show the potential success of the business. So, for example, someone who maybe is very experienced in beauty salons opening up um, a catering industry, the success of that business
Yeah.
might not be so great. So the embassy might deny it on those grounds. So it's important to open up a business with something you are experienced in and that you have knowledge in.
Yeah. Uh, in the past, what kind of businesses have you dealt with in similar applications? What kind of range of industries have you helped people form a business and then launch their E2 visas?
Well, the E2 is very diverse. I mean, I've had people opening up beauty salons, I've had people opening up restaurants, catering businesses. I've had people open up construction sites, oil and gas refineries. So
Yeah.
it's a very diverse visa. And the other thing to note is it's important. A lot of people get attracted to, California or New York, the big states. But what is important, I say to clients, is not to go directly to the big states sometimes, because one, it's always more complex to run a business. You have a lot of state laws in place. You have to have certain licenses. For example, someone opening a beauty business may require a cosmetology license. And in certain states, it's much easier to get, for example, in Texas or your smaller states, it's easier to obtain those licenses in comparison to somewhere like California or New York, which have much more, their requirements are set to a higher bar.
Yeah. Okay. And so once we have identified a certain industry, and then now, uh, do I have to buy an existing business, or I can incorporate and create a new enterprise?
It varies on the individual. Some people want to prefer to acquire an existing business. Some people prefer to set up a new business. But the main thing with the E2 is there's three main components which are heavily scrutinized by the officer, and that is first of all the source of funds, where the money is coming from, and that's to make sure the money is not coming from an illegitimate source like money laundering. They want to make sure that, for example, if you're a doctor and you make $400,000 a year, that the money comes from your hard work, and therefore they might want a copy of your tax returns. Or perhaps you sold a property and you say, well, I'm investing $200,000. I just sold my apartment in Israel for $300,000. Here's the deed of title. Here's where the money's coming from. So that's one aspect that's very crucial of the E2 as a source of funds. And the second aspect is the marginality requirement, meaning that you're not just making enough
Yeah.
money for yourself and family, that you are able to fund other workers and give better job prospects in America, and also that the funds are irrevocably committed. That means that you're actually spending on the business. You're not just investing, you actually spent money on your business.
Your capital must be at risk. I know we had a client several years ago where a person, they were dealing with somebody else. I think they were doing a self-application. So in anticipation of the E2 visa, they actually sold off all the assets and trying to move, the household goods and everything, and and to in anticipation that they will get the visa and then they can shut off everything in Canada and then do something there. They were stopped by the U.S. Custom Border Protection, and they were say, "Hey, where are you going?" And say, "Oh, we are going," and say, "You're not coming back." So they were turned down because of lack of non-immigrant intent. Um,
Correct. That's
and
really important.
so I know what you said by marginality, that first of all, it has to be it cannot be a primary sole business in US that will derive the livelihood from. You must have existing business and existing ties in Canada. At the same time, you can expand your business interest in US, and that will form a basis of E2 visa. And I think once that problem was corrected, then they had reapplied and they got the second time. So I appreciate you
I have
mentioned
that
many.
issue. Yes, I have that issue with a lot of my younger clients. My clients that are more experienced and are slightly older, that have usually property in their home country. They have a business in their home country, so they've got substantially more ties to their home country. However, the clients that are maybe fresh out of university or school, that have money to open up a business and are new entrepreneurs, and people in their early 30s, they might not have the same ties or a business in the home country. So I say to them, it's really important to get other ties. Maybe you own some property, perhaps you maybe even have a job offer in the future to come back to, something that shows that you have a reason to return to your home country. Because as you say, that is that is one of the biggest reasons that people do get denied is non-immigrant intent, the intent not to return home.
Yeah. I'm glad that we emphasize that point clear enough, because many people think that they can cut off all ties from their home countries, let's say Canada here, and then move lock, stock, and barrel to US and never to come back. Remember, guys, this is a non-immigrant visa. You must at all times show intention to return to your country, where you must show ties. So, in ideal situation, this is where you have a couple of businesses in Canada, and you want to expand your business overseas in US, and you have some managerial skills or entrepreneurial skills and investable funds that you can use to spread your income source in US, and that will obtain you the treaty investor visa, and with your family. So what documents are we looking at? What documents are needed eventually for submission?
Well, firstly, what's important is to get all the corporate documents. Make sure you have a corporation established in the US, the bank documents, and then I look into the transfer of funds. First of all, the source of funds is the first thing that is I say to clients is very important. I need to see their tax returns or sale of property, like we discussed before, to show that the funds that are being invested are from a legitimate source of income that can be backed up. Many people, especially younger people, get the money given as a gift, perhaps from their parents or a family member. And I say, well, that family member, they think if it's a gift that that's enough, but in fact it's not. They have to show that that family member owns property or makes a high salary to show where that money is coming from. So that's the first thing that we have to establish, is that the source of your funds is clear. And then the next step is to look at how the funds are transferred, that they're transferred. For example, if we have a client that is investing the money from Canada to the US, it goes from their personal bank account directly to their business account in America, or their personal account in America, then the business account, and the money is invested into the business. And then the next stage would be to look at how the money is spent. A lot of people get denied because the funds aren't, as you said before, irrevocably committed. And what that means is you have to show that you're not just putting the money in a bank account, but you're actually investing in your business. So that would mean
Yeah.
perhaps purchasing a company car, getting a lease agreement here for an office lease, perhaps hiring 2 or 3 employees that have the lawful right to work in the US. It means actually spending money in your business. And I usually advise clients to spend at least 25 to 30% of the funds invested.
Good, good. Um, Many people who have not been to US, or they don't have enough experience in actually working or having done business in US, they will possibly need help from somebody who can navigate what business and where to incorporate and how to go all this. Maybe you have to first get a tax ID number, IRS, open an account, Social Security, all those documentation. Do you help those applicants to do this, or they have to do this on their own and then approach you?
No, well, the positive thing is, I think, like most law firms and myself, we work with consulting business. There's many consulting businesses in the US. I work with one in particular that helps guide my clients on these matters, on how to set up a bank account, how to set up the business, and a business plan, which is a crucial component of the E-2. The business plan really describes what the business will be doing, what your experience is, and also the projections of the business. How much money will your business make based on the current economic growth of businesses in an alike position?
Okay,
So
great.
we do
And
help clients with those matters.
and this application, once this application is prepared, the package is prepared, this is submitted not to USCIS in US, but it is submitted to the US consulate overseas where the applicant is living, correct?
Well, that depends on first of all, depends on the applicant. Of some people prefer to do a change of status, in which case the E-2 will go to USCIS for adjudication. And other applicants prefer to go back home, or some applicants don't have a choice but have to go back home. For example, those who are from Europe on an ESTA visa, the ESTA visa does not actually allow individuals to change status. So many people from the UK or other European countries, or Australia is another one, they have to go out and go to the embassy for consular processing and have the E2 stamped on their passport and come back.
Okay, good. And uh, I assume the dependent family, the spouse and children less than 22, I think 21 or 22, they will also get the
21,
dependent
yeah,
21, because we have 20. So
they
they
do,
will also
providing
they will also likely get the dependent visa.
that is correct. Providing the principal E2 applicant, the person who's actually investing the money, gets the visa approved, then the wife and children or the husband and children are able to get their E2 approved also.
Correct. Correct.
And
Okay.
it's also important
What
to
is
know, a lot of people wonder if their spouse can work. The spouses are allowed to work. So if your spouse does have an E2 and you're coming to America on their E2, you're actually able to apply to immigration for an employment authorization document to enable you to work
right?
also.
And the spouse can work independently of that business. They can work outside and not restricted to that business.
That is correct, Jess. And that comes in very useful for many people that come here with the intention just to start a business in the US and then decide they absolutely love it here, like many people do, and want to obtain a permanent green card. Quite often, the spouse of the E2 visa holder has been able to obtain employment with a company, and that employer will then sponsor that spouse for a green card, which then allows the
Yeah.
change of the adjustment of status from E2 to green card holder.
Yeah, but the E2 visa holder working for his own company, he cannot qualify for green card based on the experience on his own company, like on self-employment. Is that right?
No, that's correct. The E2 is a visa that can be renewed indefinitely. It's usually granted if you do it from inside the US. It's usually granted in 2-year increments, so you can renew it every 2 years. If you get it outside the US, it is granted for different durations of time. I know the embassy in Paris have started limiting it to 15 months. Other countries allow it to be for 5 years. Some are 2 years. So it depends on the embassy how long your E2 will be granted for.
Correct. But it necessarily does not lead to green card. So for green card, they have to use some other avenue.
Correct. And there are various avenues, whether it's through the spouse obtaining an employment-based green card and being sponsored through employment. Perhaps they meet someone here, fall in love, and obtain a marriage green card. And some E2 holders eventually decide to do an
Yeah.
EB1, which is if they're recognized in a certain field, they can choose that option.
Correct. Correct. Guys, I've been talking to Tina Gumashan. She has sufficient practice in different US applications, including Treaty Investor Visa. Her number is flashing, and let me repeat this: 818-949-2662. She can be independently reached at that number, and you can make a separate individual appointment to talk to her and discuss your case, not only in Treaty Investor Visa, but in other areas of US immigration scenarios. Perhaps you are thinking of applying for asylum, or a student trying to convert into H-1B, or other avenues in U.S. immigration. Maybe you receive a letter from ICE for like a deportation defense. Maybe she can intervene there. So Tina Gumashan, based in Los Angeles, and I know some people are typing. Sabir, New York. Hello, hello, hello. There are a lot of people who are typing. Hello, guys. Right now, I'm just taking calls. If at all, if you have a question, you can type the question, or you can call that number directly, and just ask question about US with Tina Gumashan, and then we can go from there. Tina, one of the last questions that I have to ask is that what is the total processing time once the application is submitted? Let us assume in Canada, in US Embassy in Vancouver, once the application is submitted, so they will most likely be called for an interview. And right, is that right?
Correct. That is
It
correct.
doesn't happen without the interview. There's an interview.
Correct. Canada is actually one of the fastest embassies out of all the embassies that I send my clients to. Canada, it takes around 2 weeks to respond. Everything's sent electronically to Canada. You don't actually have to physically mail it. So it's sent electronically. Within 2 weeks, they'll respond usually and give you a date for an interview. you. And if you're a new E2 visa holder, if you've never had one before, they will schedule you for an interview in Toronto. However, if it's a renewed visa, if you're going back to get it renewed, it'll be at any of the embassies in Canada. So but it's a relatively fast process. Within about 4 weeks, you can obtain your visa.
Yeah, U.S. immigration, U.S. embassy, and U.S. Custom and Border Protection. They have a special, if I may say, a special love or affinity with Canadian passport holders because they can trust Canadian credentials and documents. There's not much to investigate. There's not as compared to other countries, and they can scrutinize and get to the bottom of the U.S. That immigration application outcome quickly for Canadians than any other nationality. No matter what Europe or Asia. So I'm not surprised that the U.S. embassy can turn around in these cases for Canadians faster than any other nationality. I'm not surprised, and I hope that special bond between U.S. and Canada continues forever. So
Yes,
hey,
we hope so.
thank you very thank you very much, Tina, for your time, and we'll tap you for
Thank you
some
so
other
much for having me.
uh, U.S. immigration category in time. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.